Inside the Madison Square Garden Press Center, I'm Caleb Lamb alongside Mark Sell, here to break down Syracuse's quarterfinal matchup with the Pittsburgh Panthers. Now, Mark, Syracuse is playing a team that when they met in the regular season, Pittsburgh was able to smother them offensively and really just grind out a 10-point victory. What does Syracuse have to really focus on to try and reverse that result?
Well, it pretty much comes down to defense and being physical down the other end of the court. Pitt, pretty much one of the best defensive teams in the country, and on the offensive side, they're the best shooting team in the Big East. So that kind of couples well with Syracuse because coincidentally, Syracuse's defense, #1 in the conference in opposing field goal percentage. They're holding opponents to under 38%, but it's down the other end of the floor that Syracuse has to really watch out for, specifically with the rebounds. When these two teams met back on February 2nd, Pittsburgh out-rebounded Syracuse 39-24, the biggest test of the season for Bai Kita and Rakeem Christmas.
And those two did have an okay game against Seton Hall. They were involved. We saw some production out of Bai Musakeda, so those two I think will be a big focal point again. Now, for this game, Syracuse against Pittsburgh, you mentioned it, like the rebounds were a big focal point for the Panthers to try and grind out that game. This time around, Syracuse might be able to change things up a little bit in how they attack the basket with some more three-point shooting, as they've got James Sutherland back, whom they did not have the first time around.
That's right, and James Sutherland said after the game yesterday, after they beat Seton Hall, fact of the matter being that they have to come out and they have to be physical from start to finish. Sutherland had 6 threes in the game yesterday, 20 points. He's going to be huge, and Jim Boeheim said after the game yesterday that Sutherland is that guy that you want to put out there who can expand the offense and have that threat. Even if they're going to lock him up on defense, he's still important because he is a threat.
Now, is James Sutherland your X factor for today's game?
Well, pretty close, but I'm going to go with the other senior on this team. It's Brandon Trish. Jim Boeheim said after the Seton Hall win yesterday that Pittsburgh is going to guard James Sutherland all day long. So he's not going to be an option. But Jim Boeheim hinted that that's going to open up the offense for other players on the court. And I think you can make the case that he was alluding to Brandon Trish. Trish needs another good game. He followed that up yesterday by knocking down his first 3, and what he said was pretty much did that for the first time in over a month. So Trish needs a big game today. I think you'll see a lot of the action going to him, Carter Williams finding him, especially in transition.
All right, I'm going to go with Rakeem Christmas as my X factor to see how he does along the boards.
They got to be physical down low, just like we said.
He's going up against 7-foot-tall center Steven Adams out of New Zealand, so a big matchup there on the glass. Now, what about your prediction for today's result?
I see this coming down to the wire. It's going to come down to the last shot, the last possession. But I see Pittsburgh pulling out. The final score be lower scoring than yesterday when Syracuse won 75-63. I see Pitt coming out on top this time. The final score 60-58.
All right, I'm going to go with a final score of Syracuse coming out with a squeaker, a 62-58 win for the Orange. So, Mark, we'll now see what happens. This game coming up at 2 p.m. here, the quarterfinal round matchup between Syracuse and Pittsburgh here at Madison Square Garden.
And don't forget, we'll see everybody back here right after the game, so if you keep it right here on sportsblog.citrustv.net, we'll have your post-game coverage as well, and we'll be here with you throughout the rest of the week if Syracuse does beat the Panthers.